The Moton Mailbag is brought to you by the Robert Russo Moton Museum, located in Farmville, Virginia. The Moton Museum is a civil rights museum focusing on the history of Prince Edward County between 1951 and 1964.
Welcome back to the Moton Mailbag. My name is Kane Townsend, Director of Education and Public Programs.
And I'm Leah Brown, Assistant Director of Education. The Moton Mailbag is a weekly listener question show. Each week we'll answer questions about U.S. history, African American culture, civil rights, and more. Feel free to submit your questions via Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moton Museum, or you can email us at info@motonmuseum.org.
Today we have the esteemed honor of having a very, very special guest with us here in the studio. The one, the only, our Managing Director, Cameron Patterson.
Cameron!
Whoop whoop!
I am so happy to be here and excited to be a friend of the pod.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Cameron, Leah, how is life? I mean, COVID certainly is still very much a household term, although we might be in phase 2 by now, by the time this is released, of kind of reopening. But how is life? What things are you still having trouble finding in the store?
So I was able to get some toilet paper.
Nice.
So I feel like the demand is starting to catch back up. Yep. So I ordered some from Walmart.com. And it shipped right to the house. It took a few days. But the only thing I'm not able to get still is cleaning supplies. Yep. Like Clorox, Lysol. Luckily, I still got some in my arsenal. But, it's really been tough for the museum as we look to reopen.
Yeah, I've only been able to find bleach. And, I mean, bleach is fine, but, I don't want to use bleach on everything.
No.
But, that's all I can find. I mean, but 2 months ago I couldn't find that. So I think as it continues to progress, we'll gradually continue to start being able to find stuff again. But hand sanitizer, you'd think I was asking something in Russian because it's like, huh? What? No, they buy it off the truck. I'm like, okay, well, you can't even stock it.
I've heard of some distilleries across Virginia that have utilized their resources to make hand sanitizer. So I know a couple of museums that have had some success building up their arsenal with some of those supplies. So it's neat to see how businesses have shifted. There's a business here in town called Yak Attack. They are known for making the paddle boats and kayaks. And they've been able to shift production to make some of the protective face masks.
Cool. That's awesome.
That they've supplied to the hospital and other health-based organizations.
Yeah, I've enjoyed just seeing how different organizations have pivoted to help supply these needs. It's been cool to see. People are 3D printing masks. It's like, what? That's a thing? So it's cool to see how the technology has changed and impacted it.
For sure.
Kimberly and I talked about this briefly last week, but what do you think is not going to come back or come back in a very, very different way after the pandemic? Last week, I think we said buffets were pretty much canceled.
I did have the opportunity to get a haircut.
Nice.
Earlier this week.
Jealous.
And it's been neat to see how my barber has shifted his mindset as a result of all that's happening. So for him, appointments will become a thing moving forward, even as we hopefully move out of this at some point. We talked about, though, that the whole idea of the barbershop, being able to gather and conversate with one another, it really is a place where you learn about what's happening in the community. You laugh, you joke. Doing appointments is really going to shift that environment. But I think from a safety standpoint and just from the fact that people change in terms of what they need. So, a lot of customers, he said, have embraced it because they're working during the day. So to be able to know this is my time, I show up, I get cut, I leave. Mm-hmm. But I'll miss that barbershop chatter.
Yeah, and going off of that, it's my hairdresser sent out a message. This is from my hairdresser at home, and it was just like, this is what we're doing. These are our protocols. No more than 6 people in the shop at once, including them. And I'm just like, so how am I gonna know who? And it's like you have the regulars, and they come in and they have the banter. Yeah. And that's part of like the experience for me, is going checking and see what's going on with people. So
I feel like I'll have to take a day off work and sit in the shop all day and individually banter with each person that walks through the shop. But I've been pleased that my barber's taken this very seriously, very tight with the protocols. There's no guarantee in anything that you do, but it just gives you comfort when you see folks taking it seriously. I dipped into Burger King the other day. I gave them a shout out because they're wearing their masks consistently. They're wearing their gloves consistently. So it's neat to see that we are finding ways to thrive and keep moving.
No. On that same note, I do feel a lot better about food prep now than I probably ever have, because the amount of oversight on it now, hygiene, I feel, I would go eat out in a heartbeat now. Although, in the past I've been skittish because I'm a germaphobe. I mean, we know this now, but I know people are going to be washing their hands many times, gloves, masks. I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's, I always try to stick with the locally owned eating options here in town, especially during this season, to give them some extra support. And I feel like they are finding ways to be creative, and to, a lot of people embracing online delivery that might not have done that prior to this. So, I think we'll get through it. It's going to still be tough.
Yeah, I do think we're going to be in a better place afterwards and after all this stuff is over. So I look forward to whatever that looks like in the very near future. So with that said, are we ready to get down to the questions?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it.
Great. I think Leah's going to ask the first one, and we will go ahead and knock them out.
Okay. Tell us a story about visitor engagement.
So, I think, we engage with audiences of all ages, different types of programs. And I think, one of the things I like is working with older students and adults. Just need to be able to take a deep dive and need to be able to see how they're able to kind of connect the moments and experiences that they get here with what's happening in real life. But one of my favorite programs has become the Virginia Children's Book Festival. Nice. So I love the hip hop and children's literature program that we've been able to partner on over the past couple of years. And so, we are taking a book that has historic elements along with some hip hop elements in terms of lyrics and content merging together, and we're able to introduce that to students, and so the students have the opportunity to read a book. And it's been students here at Prince Edward County High School, and then they come into the museum and they have the opportunity to engage with the author, to engage with a hip hop group. And so they're talking about the themes of the book, and then they're also putting together lyrics that they have written that really speak to the themes that they've learned about. Such a neat way to learn, such a neat way to engage, and really a great experience for students that they might not have gotten otherwise. So that's been a favorite moment for me over the past couple of years, and it's something that we will look to continue for sure.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite partnerships for sure with the VCBF, and just the number of, and that's something else that will be probably different here in this fall, but certainly we'll do our best to try to make sure that experience is still significant and meaningful for those students. But yeah, check out their music video. You should just be able to Google it and find it, but you can find that music video that they made from last year's book festival. You should just be able to Google it.
Yeah, so this past year it was Tiffany Jackson, the author of Let's Hear a Rhyme, Malik 16, who is a hip-hop artist and lyricist that collaborated with Tiffany Jackson for that book. And then we had a special guest, the Lady of Rage.
Oh, yeah.
She is a resident of Farmville, Virginia. And so the students were very excited to have someone in their backyard that they look up to, have respect for. So it was a really special moment.
Yeah, so the day, my first time meeting Lady of Rage, it was interesting to see how the students, when she peeked around the corner into our auditorium, one of the girls was like, she's here, and slapped her friend and was like, oh my gosh, she's here. So it was the energy changed. And it's always good when you can incorporate hip hop into education. It's part of their conversation anyway. Yeah,
I ran into her the other week in the CVS drugstore in the hair care aisle as I was looking for some products. How fitting is that with her famed song Afro Puffs? Mm-hmm. So it's neat. It's one of those things where you are like, hi, all nervously meeting someone that just kind of, you've seen them on television, you've heard their music, but they're a real live human being living right in your backyard.
Yeah.
What about you, Leah? Story working in visitor engagement, museum ed?
Yeah. So I'm chatty. I hide it well, but I am chatty. So I like when visitors come in and they just want to talk. They want to further engage in the story, but they don't maybe they ask a question, or my favorite is when they don't know how to ask a question. I'm like, all right, we'll put it all out there. We'll put it together and see what we come up with. So just being able to engage with visitors, because they have their own background, their own understanding, and then you can add the Moton version to that too. I like it.
Definitely. It's intimidating, some aspects of the work we do. I feel like when you are giving a tour, so I've given tours where Joan Johns Cobb's sister, Barbara Johns, has been a part of it. Bob Hamlin, former president of the museum, one of our docents currently. And, when you do that alongside people that experienced it, people who are highlighted in the museum itself, it kind of makes you, stop and kind of grasp the seriousness of what you're doing. And you just kind of got this desire to get it right, to do right by the sacrifices that they made.
Absolutely.
Well, you never know who's going to walk in the door. I mean, congressmen, governors, lieutenant governors, senators. I mean, people just come in like, oh, yeah, hey, I was in the area. It's like, oh, all right. And so now you have to give a tour to the governor of the state or somebody running for vice president, just casually. And it's just like, well,
yeah,
all right, here we are, pressure's on.
How memorable has it been in that regard? I mean, it's our resident historian, Dr. Larissa Smith. She's had Dorothy Davis, the lead plaintiff in Davis versus Prince Edward County, come into the museum unexpectedly.
We're live. I can always cut it back.
Kanan, you've had the opportunity to offer a tour to Senator Kane and Secretary Ann Holton during his campaign for the vice presidency. We have had the opportunity to welcome Governor Northam and Lieutenant Governor Fairfax during their campaigns for their respective office. Ed Gillespie, who campaigned for the governorship during the 2017. So, we've been fortunate, and you just never know who's going to walk through those doors. That makes it exciting, and it really is neat to see that Moton has become a place that, folks want to visit, they want to learn, and hopefully use the lessons learned to shape our Commonwealth.
Makes it exciting and sometimes rather terrifying.
For sure. You always have to keep your game on. Always good to keep a shirt and tie hanging in the office, because you could go from putting up tables and chairs one day, checking out customers in the bookstore, to giving tours to high-ranking individuals.
I'd only been in the job for like a month and a half, and then Tim Kaine shows up before
wow.
the VP debate. He's like,
Great.
we're going to give a tour. I'm just like, oh my goodness.
That was Moton put into a spotlight in a way in which it hadn't been since our inception as a museum. So I applaud you to be able to step into that after only being on the job for a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I applaud my heart for still working. I think my experience was more recent. We did a collaboration with a local art museum, the Longwood Center for Visual Arts, LCVA for short, for Martin Luther King Day. And back in December, which seems like an eternity ago now, I went into the classroom to kind of help these students get ready with what we were doing in terms of an inaugural poetry contest. And so I did an activity with the students that I do from so often, is focusing on their values, and for them to kind of motivate them to enter this poetry contest. And so I do the activity, don't think much else of it. I come back to the museum and then they write their poems. And so that was in December. In late January, when we did the program, one of the kids who won, there's 3 winners of a gold, a silver, a bronze. The guy who won gold said, so the activity essentially was that you whittle down your values and eventually you're left with one, your most important. And he actually used that as the title of his poem, and as just kind of just the event that guided him writing the poem and ended up winning. To me, that was really cool and made me think, wow, kids do listen. So I need to be really sharp and make sure I am always on my A game, kind of like Cam said earlier, because they really are listening and they pick up more than you think. So that made me feel good, because it was like, wow, he actually listened and he participated in an activity in class that one time, and that inspired him enough to write this poem, and the poem won. So to me, that was pretty cool and pretty recent. Although, what is time anyway, right? Because what day is it?
Friday. No.
Hey, it's kind of Friday for us now.
Oh my gosh, it's not Fridays.
Close
now
enough.
I'm just disappointed.
Hey, we got a 2-day weekend.
Yay.
4-day
weekend.
Normally it's
2 days off, 4-day weekend.
As you all can tell, we laugh a lot here at Moton, which is a very, very good segue into the next question. 10 stars. All right. On a 5-star scale. What is a time that you laughed very, very hard, or laughed the hardest when you've been working here at Moton?
All right.
Leah's laughing now.
Yeah, I know. I promise I'm a professional. I'm all, sometimes am serious, I promise. Honestly.
We're humans, though.
Yeah. Getting to know the staff, I have laughed so hard I cried before here. And if you know me personally, that happens. It's a fact, it happens. The the other day. We were just chatting, and it was just like, this is a great conversation. But to segue to like a work event, we had a group come from New York State, and just the conversation we had was tremendous. It was just an honest and open conversation. It was great. And like to be able to laugh with visitors. This is not an easy history. It is not an easy conversation to have sometimes. But to be able to be open and honest and to share laughter and make such a difference. It was a great experience.
I had it. Wait a minute. Now I'm blanking. Hold up. Kids, yes. I love messing with kids. I think it's the funniest thing in the world to do because kids are gullible sometimes. And I don't mean like mess with kids. I mean just like lighthearted stuff. So like for instance, I broke my arm twice in 9 months between 2016 and 2016, something like that. And so I've got this rather long scar on my arm. And kids, if you've been around kids, they don't care. They'll ask anything. It does not matter. And so they come up and they ask me what happened to my arm. And I just find it hilarious coming up with the most ridiculous stories to tell them of what happened to my arm. The most common one usually is that there was a beached shark and I cut my arm on its tooth, throwing it back into the ocean. Some believe me, most do not, but I don't tell them what actually happened either way. And so they're just like, man. To me, that's always pretty funny. Kids have no concept of age whatsoever. And so it is hilarious just telling, Mr. Townsend, how old are you? 45. Nuh-uh, you're right, I'm 46. They're like, oh man, no way, that's how old my dad is. My mom's 100. You know, like they'll just be like, no concept of age whatsoever. Like our docents or volunteers will be with us. They'll ask, how old are you, Mr. Such and such or so and so? He'll be like, I'm 50. You know, how old do you think I am? And they're like, 50. And they're like, thanks. You know, because they are into their 80s probably. So just playing little jokes on kids, and most of them are good sports about it. And the older ones, I might tell what actually happened. But it's pretty funny, just kind of messing with them a little bit because they ask everything. Like, does anybody have any questions? Hands up. That don't have to deal with going to the bathroom, hands back down. Like, it's like, the kids are funny. I love kids. I love the kids who come to the museum. What about you, Cam?
I got two moments. So typically in a museum, you become mortified when kids want to touch things and, horseplay in the galleries. But, I bust out laughing. I was in gallery 3. I was rounding the corner with the portrait of the Supreme Court, and I see this kid climbing on the Supreme Court columns that we have. And the teacher's with me, and the teacher says to the kid, get off of there. And I couldn't help but to laugh. Like, it's just one of them things where after a long day of giving tours to multiple school groups, it was just a laugh that was probably needed by myself and those around me that joined in. So I don't condone climbing on museum property, but in that moment, I couldn't help but laugh. Also, the thing about kids not knowing age, I had a kid one time. I was presenting with our docent, Mr. Bob Hamlin, and he was telling his experience about the school closings. And after he was done, a kid raises his hand and asks me if I was locked out of schools.
Oh, baby.
And I'm like, nope. 32 years of age. I graduated in 2005. But I'm a little mad that you think I'm an old man. So,
in hindsight, I guess this isn't super silly of a question, but I have had a lot of kids ask me, "How about do I know Barbara Johns?"
Yes.
Oh yeah, a lot of those.
And one or two interesting souls asked me, "Did I go to school with Barbara?" And I was like, "It don't work."
Now the knowing Barbara Johns.
Yeah, that one's
because a lot of folks don't realize.
Right.
when she passed away,
Right.
And the fact that we do know her siblings and have interacted with her children.
Right.
But yeah, there's never a dull moment. I'm very fortunate, in this job. At least a couple of times a day, you're gonna laugh about something, whether it's something weird and crazy that we've done, being in the office with one another, or something that you saw or heard being with a visitor. Makes for a good day.
I just thought of this as we were talking about visitors, and of course people want to come and take pictures because that's the thing people do. If you didn't take a picture, it didn't happen, right? And so I always think it's hilarious for me, because we work in a civil rights museum, when they ask me to take a picture for them. You know how like when people say count to three, say cheese or pickle or whatever they say, or make a silly face or something like that, right? I just say random civil rights things when on three. I'm like, 1, 2, 3, say separate but equal. And then they're just almost like, what? And then they're like laughing because I just said something so like outlandish compared to what they normally take pictures with. And so, I just think that's always hilarious.
I have been known to say that if we're out dining and the bill comes and I'm in the midst of a group of folks.
You do that often.
I enjoy it. Cracking up.
We have to. Laughing makes you live longer and improves your immune system. So laughter is very, very important. We advocate for laughs, but not for climbing on our exhibit.
We will live long.
Yeah.
And prosper.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beat me to it. All right, Lee. I think it's on you now.
Okay. Describe Moton using one word.
This one's always tough.
I would say community. The people that you interact with and the importance that this institution holds in our local community really is inspiring. We often say we are 1 part national treasure and 1 part community resource. And so not only is this a place where you can come and learn about history, but it's also a place that brings people together. Our space is often used for dance recitals and community gatherings, and people know that Moton is a central place within this community.
Absolutely.
And I hope that's a identity that we never lose.
I absolutely agree. And since you said that takes away a word that I don't have to think about as much, which is good. So I'm going to go with resilience. I think it is universal in terms of like lessons, right, that you can get from the Moton School story. But resiliency is something that's so important all the time. I think just the grit, the resilience of these students in this community to do what they did. I think it's absolutely commendable. I think it's incredible, and I think it's left a very strong legacy. That's all I got. I had something else, but I'm like, nope, that actually sums it up.
That's pretty good. So the word I initially thought of was just home. Like people in this community come to Moton to learn, for events, like attended a birthday party here. Like it's the community's home to me. It's where they talk about the strike and then that celebration, but also the tragedy of the schools being locked out, being closed. So you have like the aspect of this is the gathering space. This is the home for the community. That's what I take from it.
Oh.
We're Farmville's living room.
Basically.
That actually doesn't sound too terrible.
Yeah.
Put that on a bumper sticker.
There it is.
Farmville's living room. Yeah.
The birthplace of the student-led civil rights movement in Farmville's living room.
But I think it's a testament to those who were getting this place organized. I mean, from the Martha Forrester Council of Women to the eventual board, they wanted this space to be partially what it used to be. You know, they didn't want this to just be a place where people can come and go on tour. This was the auditorium right next to where we're recording this at, right? They were doing dance recitals, they were doing musicals, they were doing theater plays. You know, they were doing things that you would do in a school. And so I think a big part of that was that they wanted to keep that spirit of that going 80 years after it was initially built. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of continuing that in that regard. Although sometimes it results in our curtains getting torn and things like that. But that's okay, you know, because we're we're flexible and we have insurance.
Yes, insurance is a
There it is.
All right, last question, but could be a long one, and that is okay because this is a special episode and the season finale. Spoiler alert. What is your long-term vision for Moton? Don't all answer at once.
So, you know, our mission has been pretty much set in stone since our inception as a place that interprets and preserves and promotes the civil rights history of Prince Edward County. Mm-hmm. But I think it's that piece that we added to our mission a couple of years ago that talks about Moton being a place that advances dialogue of importance. And I think that, you know, in the times in which we live, when our country and communities across the country have become fractured, you know, I think Moton can be and should be a place where we, you know, talk about, you know, ideas related to citizenship and how to be civically engaged. And, you know, I think we've got some lessons in terms of the students that make that possible.
Good when you are.
I also want to see Moton be a place that engages the next generation in these conversations, in terms of learning about history, in terms of using that history to advance and better their communities. And that's why I'm excited for the museum to partner with a new initiative called Made by Us. It is an initiative bringing together museums and cultural institutions across the country as we work to connect with young students, as we share the ideals of citizenship and democracy. And I'm really excited because I really do believe that Moton speaks to that in a powerful way. This story is about young folks using the tools of a constitutional democracy to bring about change. They did it through the court system. And so I'm excited that we can help to promote what it means to be a good citizen and be civically engaged.
Good.
My vision for Moton is for it to be a civil rights center, for it to be a place where students come to engage with what previous student activism has looked like, how it could be applied to their own experience. Because things are happening in their community, to kind of give them the tools to help them to be activists, to be comfortable saying something, but also like the reality check, there are consequences too. So to provide resources for those students, it's a goal.
Awesome. My answer can be summed up in 4 words. I want a movie, not a documentary. I want a feature film, the Hidden Figures treatment. You don't really need somebody to write this big, long, fancy script because the story itself is already compelling enough. Call Steven Spielberg, call M. Night Shyamalan, call Jordan Peele. I don't care if it's a horror movie. I want a movie, a feature film, the Hidden Figures treatment, so that way I just feel like that's the easiest way to expose the story to the masses, and I think what we'd reap from that would be bigger than almost anything else, just because the availability. Even if it's like a Netflix movie or whatever, it's like a feature film about the Moton School story. Heck, you can call it the Moton School story. Done. TM, right? Like, and then ditto what Leah and Cam said. But for me, I think if we could get a movie, that would put us on an absolutely unreal next level, I think. So yeah, so that is a wrap for this episode, it seems like. Thanks again to Cameron for joining us for the season finale. It's a little bit different than we initially intended, but we decided that a season format will work best. So the first season, this one, will have 10 episodes, and then we'll hope to start recording a season 2, hopefully somewhere in the fall. So with that being said, next episode of the Moton Mailbag will be next season, hopefully here in the fall. You can find us wherever podcasts are found: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor.com, Google Play Store. Just look up the Moton Mailbag. Keep sending us your questions, please. All of our social media platforms, or email us at info@motonmuseum.org. I've been Kanan. She's been Leah. Thank you so much for making this podcast great. Bye.
Thank you for listening.